Day 3 of my 100 days of mixed media fun seems the perfect day to try achieving my dragon skin collage paper look with medical exam paper. I'm rolling it out on a white plastic tablecloth, the type you can buy for $1 at a dollar store, and cutting it with, of course, my favorite scissors. My dragon skin paper is both textured and shiny, so I crumpled up my paper first before applying acrylic inks. Liquitex Professional Phthalo Blue Red Shade, Deep Violet, and Iridescent Bright Silver. First, applying water with a spray bottle no mixed media studio should be without. I haven't yet tried continuous spray, but it's on my list. There's no particular placement in the applying of the ink. It is a lot of fun to watch it spread through the paper. I started with my blue, moved on to my violet, and did find that the silver, as I should remember and did remember, but it always manages to kind of catch me by surprise. It's too clumpy or thick. The particles that contribute to its shininess make it less able to easily flow through the water on the paper. So I sprayed it with more water to encourage it. And here are the results. It's interesting. Here are some closer details. There are lots of parts of it I like, but it definitely isn't what I was trying for. As I mentioned, the dragon skin is not only textured, but shiny. But this is an interesting and useful paper. I don't like how the areas of silver in some cases didn't spread, but still, it has some very cool spots. So most importantly, it contributed to a new idea, a new type of paper I'd like to develop, a galaxy paper. Another sheet of medical exam paper for day 4. Medical exam paper is a very economical choice overall, but you do have to buy it in bulk. So keep that in mind when deciding what papers you'd like to work with. I wrinkled this one up a little differently from last time. And to clue you into something I was missing when I was still doing it this way, crumpling it up ahead of time isn't the best idea. I again sprayed my paper with water before applying the inks. Again, I'm starting with Phthalo Blue Red Shade. All of my materials will be listed in the description, as well as links if you are interested in purchasing them. My Blick and Amazon links are affiliate or associate links, which means if you click on them and you make a qualifying purchase, I will make a small commission. This does not affect your price, but allows you to support my channel with your new art supplies. Second, again, is Deep Violet. Splattering it on however feels good. You may have noticed when I was applying the blue that I sprayed some more water on areas that hadn't spread as much, where I noticed I hadn't gotten as much water. Next, I added black because my goal was to make it look like outer space. I hadn't noticed when I picked it up and had forgotten that it's black pearl and iridescent. I'm not sure where I bought this ink. I got it on sale somewhere. As I've experienced with all the other shiny inks I've used, I found it too gloppy. I also planned to use more silver because I really liked that shiny look, like stars. It was part of what gave me the idea for the galaxy paper. But I'd also decided to put it in one of my little spray bottles, which I have experimented with bronze acrylic ink. It was a little too fine to use by itself, so I did end up splattering a little more silver on. I probably should have waited to apply the silver until after I figured out how to deal with so much white still. I wanted to add more black, and I decided to try black fluid acrylic. The fine line applicator I had used it in previously was, of course, clogged after sitting on the shelf for so long, and I did not have time to mess around cleaning it. The only fluid acrylic paint I currently have is Liquitex Basics Mars Black. It's actually the only fluid acrylic I've ever had, though if you caught last week's video, you know that I do want to try Goldens. I have seen so many artists I enjoy using it for collage papers and on the gel plate. As you can see, I don't mind getting my hands dirty. This may have been where I started remembering letting the wrinkles form organically. Especially when using the plastic tablecloth, I've had the wrinkles work better with the pigment when the wrinkles are also in the base, if that makes sense. Which it may not, but I hope it will in upcoming videos. Sometimes it's difficult to put into words things that your brain understands from doing as opposed to hearing in words. Anyway, let's take a look at how this paper turned out. Again, it's not quite what I was going for, but there are parts of it that I absolutely love, and I'm on the right track. But also really missing the shiny effect I had with last year's dragon skin. I decided my next experiment should be seeing whether the problem was the tablecloth or the medical exam paper. Knowing that I had gotten a little bit of shiny on last week's paper with minimal pigment compared to water, I decided to try this experiment side by side on palette paper. Medical exam paper on the left and palette paper on the right. And those are my favorite scissors, which will be in my materials list. Phthalo blue red shade. You can already see the difference in how it spreads in the tissue paper compared to the medical exam paper. Deep violet. And silver. Again, not pre-mixing it with water. I'm not sure why. As I go through this week's papers, you'll also notice that I should have, well, you may not notice this. What I notice is that I should water down the inks. I'm going through a lot of ink for very little purpose. The tissue paper turned out awesome. This looks cool too. It gets a little bit of the dragon skin, but not anywhere near what I was hoping for. And I think that's how the medical exam paper will be. Great for a galaxy look, and if you're not going for something particularly shiny, nothing wrong with it at all. Just not what I was going for. The tissue paper didn't get as much of the effect as I was going for either. As you can see, the silver doesn't bleed through the paper. I'm going to have to work on figuring out how to achieve the dragon skin look consistently. I think of all the papers you will see in this week's video, this tissue paper one is my favorite. And on to my next experiment. So if one of the problems I was having not achieving the dragon skin look was the paper not being as smooth against the surface on which I was working from the beginning, why not add extra smooth? I started reusing palette paper, which is perfectly fine to do, but I didn't want it to appear that there was anything from the palette paper affecting this paper, so I did use new. I started with way too much water, deep violet and phthalo blue red shade, and covered the top with another sheet of palette paper, which of course wouldn't dry. So I had removed the palette paper from the top, which did create this gorgeous blended, more muted look. It's very nice. But again, I should have known that there would be no drying at all between the palette paper, especially with so much water. But experiments are good. And I would try something similar to achieve this look again. And this is the paper I pulled from what remained on the palette paper I took from the top. This is a great translucent paper with some interesting texture. It was Froyle Davies who inspired me to use acrylic ink on tissue paper. And interestingly enough, a reel of hers popped up in the midst of my working on this technique again, and reminded me that I used to spray the ink after, not the paper before. This time I added in some phthalo blue green shade, in part because I'm going through my phthalo blue red shade so fast. I'm not sure why. I just grabbed a piece of wrinkly tissue paper, already knowing that starting with wrinkles was not the ideal way to do this, but here we are. And the first thing noticeable about this paper that took an excessive amount of time to dry is the overuse of ink. And I thought it was dry, but there was still the wet spot. And this just looks rather blah to me. So I decided to add some silver. I got back out the spray bottle, which was working inconsistently. No surprise, I hadn't cleaned it out. I did significantly water down the silver this time, which, as it's applied, makes it look not very shiny. I did want splatters. I decided to fill in a white spot with some silver. That didn't accomplish much. Larger splatters for the effect. And although it doesn't look very shiny here, when it dries, it's quite shiny. I was afraid it wouldn't be effective with as much water as I added, but as you can see, it's quite effective. So this paper I have mixed feelings about. I wasted ink for very little benefit, especially starting with the wrinkled paper. It does look interesting and is, of course, usable, and proof that even if you water down the silver to the point where it looks like it won't be effective, it will be. But that same stuff that makes it effective also makes it globbier and more difficult to work with in this context. I've had a fun second week back in the 100-day project. I started late, which meant only 2 papers in last week's video and 5 in this one. That's okay. I'm giving myself grace. I just don't have it in me to make 7 papers every week or do 7 mixed media projects every week and film and edit them. So, you will get 100 days of mixed media fun. They just won't be all right next to each other. With reels on Instagram and shorts on YouTube and a weekly wrap-up video. I will also continue my weekly Better with Art, creative self-care art prompts on Sundays. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified as soon as anything goes live. Give this video a like if you're feeling inspired to make some art of your own, and all of that helps me reach more people with encouragement to make art. I would love a comment on what you're doing with your art or what you think of this week's papers, and check out my shop for my favorite art pants and shirts that encourage others to be making art, because we are better with art.